All right, let's dive right in with a pretty wild idea. What if the person you've known for years, maybe a friend or a family member, isn't actually the same soul they were yesterday? Sounds like science fiction, right? Well, in this explainer, we're exploring a spiritual concept called a walk-in, the idea that one soul can literally take the place of another in a fully grown adult human body. Let's start with a number, a really big one, 1 million. Now, according to the spiritual texts we're digging into, this isn't just some random statistic. This number might actually represent a hidden population, people living right here among us.
And there you have it. That's the estimated number of walk-ins supposedly living on Earth right now. Think about that for a second. 1 million individuals who, according to this belief system, are not the original soul that was born into their body. They're living out lives that someone else started.
So that obviously brings up a massive question, right? What in the world is a walk-in? Let's get right into the definition from our source material, because there's one word here that's absolutely key: consensual. So a walk-in is basically a new soul who voluntarily takes over an adult human body, but only after the original soul has chosen to leave. It's described as a complete soul swap, sure, but this is not a hostile takeover. The core idea is that it's a pre-arranged agreement. The original soul makes the choice to depart, and that creates a vacancy for a new soul to come in and pick up where they left off. So you've got two key players in this exchange. First, there's the walkout. That's the original soul who decides it's their time to leave. And then, of course, you have the walk-in, the new soul who arrives to continue living in that body. You know, here's a really interesting way to think about it that comes from the source material. It suggests that, in a way, we all do this at birth. The only real difference with this phenomenon is the timing. Instead of an infant, the new soul moves into a body that's already an adult. Okay, so if this was supposedly a super rare thing for most of history, why the sudden explosion to 1 million people? What's going on? Well, the texts we're looking at frame this as a very modern, a new age phenomenon, if you will. And this really shows what they mean. The idea is that we are in this very specific, really concentrated window of time for walk-ins. For most of history, super rare, almost unheard of. Then, bam, a massive spike in the last few decades. And the prediction is that this high frequency will stick around for another 20 to 30 years before it starts to taper off again.
So, what's behind this sudden rush? The texts point to three main reasons that all kind of converge. First, the belief that Earth is shifting into a spiritually significant new age. This apparently makes it a very popular destination for souls wanting to incarnate, which leads to the second and third points. All this new spiritual activity means that physical bodies are now considered to be at a premium. They're like valuable real estate that shouldn't be left empty if the original soul decides they're done.
All right, so let's get into the mechanics. How does a soul exchange like this actually happen? Because according to these texts, it's not nearly as simple as just flipping a switch. It's described as a really, really complex and delicate procedure.
And I find this analogy just fascinating. The idea is you're not just flicking a soul out and another one in. The very essence of one soul has to be carefully removed from every single cell and replaced by another. It's a huge operation, but it's all happening on a spiritual, non-physical plane, and it's supposedly overseen by teams of spirit guides.
So it's broken down into 4 main steps. Step 1, there has to be a mutual agreement at the soul level. Both souls have to be completely on board. Step 2, spirit guides apparently check out the body to make sure it's healthy enough for the transfer. If it gets the green light, then comes step 3, the actual exchange, which they say happens quietly overnight while the person is sleeping. But that's not the end of it, not by a long shot. What follows is a really long adjustment period. Yeah, this integration period is a huge deal. It's not like you wake up the next morning and everything is perfect. The sources say this transition can last anywhere from 3 months all the way up to 6 years. And during that time, the new soul is integrating, and it can be rough. We're talking subconscious battles with the old soul's leftover energy, serious disorientation, and even real physical and emotional health problems as this new energy tries to settle into the body. So, what's it like? What happens after the exchange is done and this long integration process starts? I mean, think about it. You're stepping into a life that's already in progress. A job, a family, friends, a whole history. That's got to come with some pretty unique challenges. And the sources are really clear on this. It is not an easy path. The new soul is up against some major hurdles.
For one, they inherit all of the walkout's karma, all that spiritual and energetic baggage from a life they didn't even live. They also go through a period of deep confusion and disorientation. And then there's the potential trauma of one day waking up and realizing, wait a minute, this isn't my original body?
So you might be wondering, how do they even function? The key, apparently, is memory. The new walk-in soul inherits all of the previous soul's memories because those are stored in the brain, not the soul. This is what lets them navigate daily life. They can go to work, talk to their spouse, remember their friends' names. From the outside, friends and family might just notice a big change and chalk it up to a new attitude or a midlife crisis. But according to this belief, it's an entirely new entity behind the wheel. And this point is hammered home again and again in the texts. It might sound like a great shortcut, right? Skip childhood, avoid adolescence, and jump right into an established adult life. But the reality, as it's described, is that it's an incredibly difficult, even traumatic experience for both the soul coming in and the soul walking out. Okay, so to really get a grip on what a walk-in is supposed to be, we have to make some important distinctions. It's easy to confuse this with other paranormal or spiritual phenomena, but the source material draws some very clear lines in the sand. And this lays it out perfectly. The number one difference, the defining factor, is consent. A walk-in is based on a mutual, prearranged agreement. That's the total opposite of possession, which is described as a forced, non-consensual entry. And it's also different from something called overshadowing. Think of overshadowing as having a spiritual roommate, two souls sharing one body for a time. A walk-in, on the other hand, is a complete and total replacement. Ultimately, what this concept does is challenge our most basic ideas about who we are. We tend to think of ourselves as one single, continuous identity from birth until death. But this flips that idea on its head, and it leaves us with a really provocative question to chew on. If a new soul inherits an old set of memories, where does one person actually end and the next one begin?